welcome to another episode of GameScope Live. Yeah, not a lot of fascinating things going on in the gaming world right now. The one thing I saw that's going to piss everyone off is not only are RAM prices through the roof, but also GPU prices seem to be ever creeping to ridiculously new heights, new standards. Saw somewhere 5090s going for like $9,000. The average price of a 5090 is going for $5,000. So it just seems like gaming's in a very stagnant state of existence. Anyway, instead of giving you guys nothing this week, I figured we'd talk about what's coming next from CDPR. Luke Stevens, arguably one of my favorite reviewers, game reviewers. I think he's honest and awesome. I love his critiques. I love the way he breaks down games and how he reviews them and stuff. But he has a pretty short video on what's coming next from CDPR. And if you guys don't know who CDPR is, CD Projekt Red are the people behind The Witcher and Cyberpunk. So instead of giving you guys nothing this week, we'll just react to this and see if anything else happens throughout the week. Always, feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the page. And if you are subscribed, hit that noti bell just so you can stay informed when new videos are dropping. With that said, we'll get started.
Also, quick little update. It looks like The Witcher 3 DLC is incoming. How soon? We don't know. They kept it vague-ish. But in the CDPR earnings call, they did mention that in the coming quarters, the studio will focus primarily on further development work on ongoing projects. We also plan to publish one of the heretofore unannounced gaming projects, that being in the coming quarters. So it seems like that Witcher 3 DLC that's been rumored for a while probably is happening. So get ready. So there's that. They also, Project Hadar, if you didn't know, there is a new IP that CDPR is working on. And they said the team has established the foundations of this entirely new IP. Now we are designing specific elements that might be included in the game, creating multiple prototypes and implementing them directly in Unreal Engine. So they're actively working on it.
Here's the thing. I would like to know if, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Unreal Engine 5. I think graphically it's impressive and it gives a lot of smaller studios the ability to keep up with higher end studios that have more financial resources to work on developing their own engine. I think, hear me out, Unreal Engine is incredibly difficult to run on hardware. And I think sometimes it's overcooked, overbaked. So I don't know how long this is definitely an exclusivity deal, right? Where CD Projekt Red is getting access to Unreal Engine 5 probably with a very low licensing fee. And Unreal Engine, they are getting marketing, basically, essentially. So, and also a small royalty fee on what's going to arguably the next two biggest RPGs that drop in the next 5 years. So I am curious that if CD Projekt Red wants to completely abandon their Red engine after they start this new trilogy of Witcher games and this new IP, that they're planning to go back at any point. Not that I'm not a fan of Unreal Engine. I just think for a studio that's capable of designing their own engine and had a really good engine, obviously you look at Cyberpunk and you look at The Witcher 3 and you're like, wow, these games are incredibly well manufactured. So just curious, it just seems that I don't know. I don't really see what the real benefit is for CD Projekt Red other than the fact that probably a little bit quicker and they have the full support of Epic. I think that's huge, obviously, when developing a game. But again, that's just my personal opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
To be clear, probably is not seen until 2030 something. Like, this is a ways out, but they are apparently actually locking it down. If you have a prediction in chat, put it in. I'm genuinely interested. I don't have any idea what this is, because typically a company that's making a sci-fi or like dystopian tech heavy game will do a new IP that's fantasy, and vice versa. They're known for fantasy, so they go with a Cyberpunk thing or something really techy. Where do they go? Soccer? Maybe. I think it's possible that they go like Western, or they could go like really experimental and wacky and crazy, where it's just like nothing you've ever seen before. It's a bunch of gummy bears running around. It's a bunch of space, maybe. Yeah, you could go, I guess, full sci-fi, because Cyberpunk isn't quite sci-fi. There's a lot that you could do. Pirates, don't give me hope. Don't give me.
And I think if CDPR is holding themselves to the same standard as Rockstar, I don't know what better comparison they can do than saying everyone loves Red Dead Redemption 2. We think we're in that same caliber, in that same ballpark of studio. Let's do our own Western. Pirates would be cool. Thing I think most when I look at CD Projekt Red and the fact that they love using history so much, or love telling a story that affects history, because Cyberpunk, for being as futuristic, there's enough history that they built into the lore that allowed them to tell that story. I think if I had to put money somewhere in Hades being the code name, I guarantee you, I don't think it's Western. I'd love it to be a Western. I don't think it's Western. Hades is the lord of the underworld. I would imagine might be something mythical, more in line with like God of War, instead of God of War being an action adventure game, just being a full out RPG, you as a human against gods. I think that would be very, very innovative and captivating in a way that I don't think we would be ready for.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that, but we'll see if that happens. We'll see if that happens. I don't know about that. One can dream. One can dream, right? World War II game, I think they're iffy on doing anything historical. I think AC Shadows showed exactly the reason why that can be something you don't want to mess with, you know? But yeah, there's all sorts of opportunities and things that they could do, but it's going to be interesting to see because they've landed on it. We'll see. We do know that they are working on a number of things that I think will surprise some. So you and I are in the trenches every day with this stuff. We follow the news. So we know that they're working on like a multiplayer Cyberpunk project or a multiplayer Witcher project. I forget which one it is. But they're working on multiplayer projects and things that probably will really surprise people when they're announced and revealed, right? That's not really surprising. They were working on multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077, but then they couldn't. I mean, they were struggling to get the game done, like full stop. So they pivoted away from it and cut it. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how that is like received when it's revealed. It's going to be very interesting. Pirate game set in Egypt. Oh my god. Oh my god. That sounds fantastic. That sounds fantastic. That sounds so good. That would be so good. That would be so good.
I know he's wishfully thinking for a pirate game or an Egypt game. First of all, shout out to my alma mater. Surprised the shirt still fits, to be honest. But after surgery, my leg. I'm down 15 pounds anyway, so whatever. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. CD Projekt Red is in a very good spot right now. I think they're at the spot where Bethesda was after Fallout 4, where again, Fallout 4 wasn't initially received great. I think there was just more hype from Fallout 3 and then New Vegas and then Elder Scrolls. Yeah, so it's hard. It really is hard to say what they're doing next. They're in a place where they kind of, and their studio is so efficient. They now have a dedicated studio working on Cyberpunk. They have the dedicated, I think that's up in Boston. They have their studio in Europe that's focused on The Witcher. They're opening, I think, another one in either Vancouver or Toronto that's going to be focused on the new thing. So they're just going to be cranking out games at a pace that we haven't seen big dedicated studios do in a long time. Obviously, Bethesda's infamous for being 6 to 8 years. Rockstar's 10 years, between games. But again, that level of polish and expectations that people have when they wait 10 years for a game is completely different. Yeah, I think their 10-year plan, from what I remember on their earnings call from last year, is like a game every other year once The Witcher 4 comes out. I think that's their plan. I think it's The Witcher 4 and Cyberpunk and this multiplayer Cyberpunk game. And it's going to be like every other year you're going to be having a CDPR release for like the next 15 years. Again, things change. Layoffs happen. One bad game can derail that whole plan. But I think they're in a good spot where, like I said, I think this DLC comes out, and from what I've heard, I think they're planning May. I think May was like the initial release date for this when I first heard about it. That's going to tell you a lot about where the state of CDPR is, because I haven't played The Witcher in so long, and I recently replayed it like 5 years ago, The Witcher 3. I actually have it re-downloaded because I was planning to replay it before this DLC, or at least get to a point where the new DLC I could just improve from where my story ends up being at the time. But yeah, it's wild. It's wild where CDPR is. And like I said, this new game is just icing on the cake. I think everyone's waiting for The Witcher 4. Everyone's waiting for Cyberpunk 2. A new IP would just be wild. Just be wild to introduce it. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Again, sorry for not having more in terms of the gaming news here. I see something that Ubisoft is revealing their new Anvil engine. So we might take a look at that. Might take a gander. Not much going on, like I said. Gaming industry is just at a lull. There's some big releases coming out. Like I said, I am working on some reviews. Crimson Desert. I know. You guys are all waiting for me and all waiting for what I have to hear and say about it. I haven't played it yet, and reasoning being is, again, between recovery and just life in general, I'm waiting until I have a clean 2-3 nights where I could actually just dive into it and go for it. From what I've heard and watched and read and seen, it's all over the place. Reviews are really all over the place, which is surprising because I don't think this game sold itself to be anything more than what I've seen that it is. I was not expecting a narrative showcase. I was expecting sprawling open world where there's literally just quest upon quest upon quest and player agencies at an all-time high, and I knew the combat wasn't going to be anything special. I didn't expect it to be. I didn't expect the story to be anything special, the dialogue to be anything special, and it seems that those are like the biggest complaints. And I'm like, that's not what they pitched this as. They just pitched this as a game that you could do a lot of things in and do them without being tied to a storyline. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, still have a couple reviews. I've played so many demos this past week and a half though, so I plan on giving you at least a demo review for a few games. Just have to edit those and get those out. But other than that, thanks for watching. As always, like, follow, subscribe. Shout out to Luke. Make sure you subscribe to his page. He's arguably one of my favorite streamers / game reviewers on the internet. So give him a shout out, give him a follow. If you leave comments on this video, at him too, because he's great. He's always reactive to the community. So as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.